you can have professors of 10 different kinds: administrative, adjunct professor, visiting professor, honorary professor, administrative professor, a full professor, associate professor, assistant professor, a professor extraordinaire, and emeritus professor. We mentioned 10 of them. And last week we spent a lot of time talking about honorary professors and adjunct professors, because we wanted you to get a sense, because every time we talk about how you become a professor, people immediately think about those people who are not academics and come into the business. And we told you that those people are recognized for the work that they have done in their fields, whether it's a field of law or business or whatever field it is, right? I think we mentioned a bit about visiting professors, that visiting professors are people who get invited to a particular university, maybe to Rhodes University. They get invited, and maybe they are from Near East University in Cyprus. And Rhodes University says, Professor so-and-so at Near East University in Cyprus, we want you to come and be our visiting professor at Rhodes. And maybe they spend 6 months or 2 months or 3 months. There's work that they have to do when they are there. Oftentimes, it is people, academics of high standing, who get invited to be visiting professors. They come to the university, they might offer lectures, they might do research, they might give seminars and many other things that they can do in the university, but they are visiting. They are not paid a salary, but they are part of that university, and it's known in the university that they get an email address, they get an office, they get all sorts of things that a normal professor will get in the university, right? Those are visiting professors. Today, I want to talk a little bit more about people who are in the university sector, right? You are in the university sector and you want to rise up the ranks, right? And I'm sure you remember that last week I said, to be a professor, it's important, of course, that you think about starting with a PhD. First of all, you want to be an academic if you want to be a full professor, right? You want to be an academic, you do a professor, you do a PhD so that you have your PhD. That's the license to practice, guys. Your license to practice in academia is a PhD, okay? If you don't have a PhD, you have a challenge of having to do a PhD and complete it, right? Once you have a PhD, but in the university sector, the hierarchy, as I said, it starts with, some universities start with junior lecturer, some universities start with a lecturer. Then you become senior lecturer, then you become associate professor, then you become a full professor. I'm going to be talking to 2 colleagues who will talk about what will get you to the professorship. Of course, even whilst you are a lecturer, if you want to be a full professor, you start doing things, doing work that will ensure that it puts you on the right trajectory to being a professor. And of course, as you know, in university, there are 3, the core business of the university is academic, okay? And academic work includes teaching and learning, it includes research, and it includes community engagement, or what we at UCT call social responsiveness. Okay, so the 3 things, these 3 things are not necessarily separate. It's not as if you've got social responsiveness there, teaching and learning there, research there. In a good space, these 3 things are interconnected. And in a well-structured career, they are interdependent. To an extent that as you advance your research, your teaching and learning also improves, because you're not, in your teaching, you're not just repeating other people's ideas. You're also inserting your own ideas that come from your research, right? If it's well done, even your research connects you enables you to do social responsiveness, or your teaching enables you to do your social responsiveness. So these 3 things in a well-structured career, they are interconnected. Actually, I'm convinced the success of my career was mainly based on the fact that I made sure that my research, my teaching, and my social responsiveness work is connected. So when I did research in schools, I also did social responsiveness work and worked. So I didn't do hit and run. You come in, you collect data, you run, and people never see you. I worked with the communities, I worked with the teachers, I worked with the learners, and we go on that way. So, and then of course, the courses, the modules that I started in the university to teach honors and master students who were preparing to be teachers, some of them academics. I drew on the work of my research. So it helped my research grow faster, and it helped me focus much better. All right, and of course, every university will value one thing more than the other in whatever way they feel that it's important, right? People are asking questions. Why is it that we don't have the same criteria for promotion in all universities? Well, this is every university has got autonomy. So every university makes its own decisions about what counts as a professor in their university, right? So there's no rule that comes from government that says to be a professor you must have so many publications or have visited so many universities. So there isn't a universal criteria, there isn't a standardized criteria. And someone said, shouldn't it be the same? Here's my view. I don't think it should be the same, right? I don't think so. I think because if you make it the same, oftentimes when we make things the same across a large system such as ours, we end up going for the lowest common denominator. All right, we end up going to the lowest common denominator, and that creates a problem, because then it positions us somewhat in a particular way as a country or as a continent. So, and universities have different strengths. Some universities want to foreground much particular kind of work, and so when they think about promotions or criteria for promotion, they are looking at how that will contribute to their vision. Whether their vision is being a teaching university or a university that's known for applied research or innovation or research or fundamental research, basic research, I don't know. But every university will put criteria that helps them become that which they want to be. And that's why criteria is different. And I think we should leave it that way. Just like the universities are not the same. We don't all offer the same programs, all right? We offer different programs. For example, at UCT, we don't offer dentistry, right? Other universities offer dentistry. We don't, right? We don't have to. We offer other programs. So every university will decide what works for them. Of course, if you want to move from one university to the other, then the challenge comes. You've got to meet the criteria of that university. You can't say, because I was a professor here, you have to make me a professor. And that's just what it is. And then the second person that this person is asking, the second question that has been sent says, shouldn't grant applications carry a certain weight in one's application for professorship? It does. Grant applications, not grant applications, the grants that you won. Okay, so in your CV as an academic, you can write that you have won grants that are worth 20 million rands in the last 5 years. You can write that because you want to show the committee that will be looking at your application for promotion or application for professorship. You want to make them aware, I'm not only a brilliant teacher, I'm not only brilliant at supervising students and doing research and publishing, but I also win grants. So if you make me your professor, you're getting someone who will win money to enable their research to go. So you as a university will not have to spend money on my research because I will earn money myself to drive my research. So we do write that in our CVs. So that's one of the things that you want to do if you want to be a professor. You don't wait for the year that you want to apply for a professorship. You start as soon as you get your PhD, because probably whilst you're doing a PhD, you are funded through a grant of your supervisor or whoever you belong to that research group. Always look out. And actually, if you can earn a research grant whilst you are a student, go for it. It is much better to do that, right? So go for it. So for example, when I finished my PhD, I remember I submitted at the beginning of 2002. The NRF published a call for Tutuka grants. I immediately applied. I didn't even tell my supervisor. I just applied because I thought I'm going to get a PhD. When I get a PhD, I want to make sure that I have a grant. I can fund my own students and I can get on my own. I wasn't a professor. I was just a lecturer. All right. I think I was a senior lecturer then. And I applied for a grant and I thought Come my PhD, I fly on my own, right? So by the time I graduated with my PhD in June in 2002, I had won a grant already. I could recruit students. I had a research group. I was organized. I had my own equipment. And that's independent. So if you're an academic, don't sit there and expect your university to give you every little cent that you need for your research. Because when you do that, you are showing that you are too junior. One way to work towards a professorship is to start applying for grants and winning the grants. When you win a grant, write down and indicate how much it is the value of the grant, because you want to be piling them up, and you put it in your CV, the grants that you won, so that one day when you apply for promotion, it is one of the things that count. It is not necessarily a criteria. It is not necessarily a criteria, but it is a strength. It is an advantage if you write that you have won grants, right? The third question that the person asking, and I'm going to be asking Professor LenkaBula just now to join me, the person says, where I work, there is a policy that allows a different route to professorship, different from the one of publication. That is through portfolios and one can be a professor of teaching, especially on those institutions that are teaching based and not research based. And the person is asking, how widespread is that practice? That practice is in many universities. There are many universities that will promote people who don't have a strong research profile, but who have a strong teaching profile, right? It depends on a university, right? The question that we need to ask is, what are you a professor of? Okay, you're a professor of a particular discipline or area of study, right? Even if you are teaching, what is it that you are a professor of? So what is it that you are a master of? Okay, so it's going to be clear. Here's the thing, young academics. When you're an academic, you also have to ask yourself, you are teaching. What is this thing that you are teaching? Do you take other people's ideas all the time from the textbook and then teach them? Are you that professor who can't come up with anything? Everything that you teach is in the textbook, all right? I don't know. I mean, we as professors pride ourselves in the ability to contribute to the knowledge that we are teaching. It doesn't mean that everything that I teach will come from me, but I want to be contributing to it. All right. So my job is not just to repeat other people's ideas as a professor, but is to interact with other people's ideas. Did you get that? We interact with other people's ideas. So we interact with other people's ideas not only through teaching, but if teaching allows me to interact with them and maybe ideas come, I can write a reflective paper. Maybe it's not a research paper. Maybe it's a reflective paper that reflects on something that I was teaching that comes from somewhere, and I make it interact with my practice. Maybe I critique it, maybe I extend it a little bit, but I haven't collected data. It's not whatever. I'm interacting with this stuff that I read, okay? But that's the value of being in academia. You're not just there to puke other people's ideas and just regurgitate them and read them all the time, right? You interact with them, you contribute to them, you might grow them, and that can be done in different ways, right? Some people do it through research, some people do it through teaching, and that's why we have something that we call the scholarship of teaching, right? There is a scholarship of teaching. So in university, there are teachers and there are teachers. There are people who are engaged in the scholarship of teaching. They are brilliant teachers. They engage with their teachers. Some of them design case studies that you can't find them in any textbook, but they use them in their teaching, even if they're using ideas from other people's textbooks or other people's research. They then bring them into the context of practice and design cases. And that's why some people have contributed many case studies. And it might not only be in business, it may be in other areas of study. So there's many ways in which you can contribute to knowledge, and you can rise to the level of professorship. I'm going to invite Professor LenkaBula to join me so that we can talk more about becoming a professor. How do you earn it, right? How do you earn it? Professor LenkaBula, I spoke to Professor LenkaBula last week. Very smart sister. So good to see you, Puleng. Welcome, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Fantastic. And then
I'm trying to get rid of the feeling.
Great. The people on Facebook will tell me if the sound is not good. Please do tell me if the sound is not good enough. If you're on Facebook, tell me. Twitter, tell me if you can't hear Professor LenkaBula. We try our best to take the volume up so that you can all hear her, and she will speak a little louder so that you can hear. I can see your students at UFS are appreciating you. They are saying our mother from UFS. Those people who don't know, Professor LenkaBula is a DVC for Student Affairs at the University of the Free State. And so I can see the young people at UFS are sending lots of love for Professor LenkaBula. So Puleng, I've been talking about how you earn a professorship, and I have mentioned the idea that people have to work towards having it's good to have a grant, a research grant, which means I'm assuming that you will have your own project that you want to do, that research grants do count. It's good to be a brilliant teacher. It doesn't mean research is only what you do. Being a brilliant teacher and building your scholarship of teaching and learning, it's also important. Sometimes it is downplayed, but it's a powerful, powerful area in academia. And then there's also work in community engagement, that you don't just work at university and do research, but you work with other constituencies outside the university, making your knowledge accessible, but also useful and meaningful to the communities that we are located in. Because as universities, we shouldn't be ivory towers. We must be accessible in so many ways. And accessibility is not only about accepting students to come and study, it's also about making our knowledge available for others to engage with. What would you like to add? I know you always bring a different angle to this conversation, Puleng.
Thank you very much, Prof, for inviting me. I'm emphasizing the professor. I know Kheti, you like being called Kheti.
Yes.
Just to inspire, encourage youth and young adults, but also those who would like to transfer their knowledge and get into the academy to appreciate your own accomplishments. So I'm very appreciative of the fact that you have defined the areas of specialization that those who are aspiring academics can follow as pathways for either assistant, associate, or full professor. And that you have emphasized that the teaching and learning aspects are important, or they could specialize on the research or engage scholarship, or what we have been calling as community engagement. My suggestion is that for any academic aspirant within the context of South Africa, but also in the continent, it is important that we hone our talents in terms of research,
yes,
in terms of teaching and learning, as well as the scholarship of engagement. The reason being, our developmental trajectories are not comparable to those in the global north.
Yes.
And therefore, to ensure that our engagement with communities influences our research outputs and publications or inventions, we must ensure that we are attentive to these contextual exigencies. And as you rightly said, universities do not have the same criteria for promotions to associate professor or to full professor. And it's quite important for us in this platform that you have created that we encourage all aspirant professors that publishing is integral. It cannot be congruent for one to be in a university and not create knowledge.
Yes.
After all, what distinguishes a professor from a teacher is
teacher,
that idea of creating knowledge,
yes,
that idea of identifying an element that doesn't exist in the knowledge arena,
yes,
whether it's a methodological issue,
yes,
thematic issue, or a new invention building on what is already available in scholarship. And I think that is quite important.
Yes.
Some universities want people to have certain number of publications before and postgraduate students before they can move to a different category of professorship. I think this is sometimes quite good methodologically. However, if that criteria is not clear, then it creates some of the contradictions that we have had around the quality of professorship. Why are people professors when their publication output or their research is not impactful or not known? So those are some of the important ideas that I think
that's an important point, because I see someone has written a question saying, how many publications do I need to be promoted? And really my point is that, I mean, exactly what you're saying, Puleng, that everyone has got to be engaged in research or in publication, whether that's scholarship of teaching and learning or scholarship of engagement or research, that's fine. But you've got to be involved, engaged in the knowledge business, and not just in the business of just regurgitating what others wrote. But it is not so much about the number of publications, because people who are chasing the number of publications end up just publishing in low quality journals. And we have spoken about this low quality journals, low quality publications on this platform. And it was precisely to say to young academics, don't just chase the numbers, because when you chase the numbers, you can end up with many publications in low quality journals. They are as good as nothing. All right, so focus on the quality and impact of your work, and often of your publications. And oftentimes young people ask me, so how do I know the impacts of my work? And I say to them, but it's not, you don't decide that your work has got impact or not. It's the people in your field who will decide. And how do they decide? And young people get surprised. I say to them, you know, when you publish a paper and nobody cites it, then you know there's a problem. Nobody cites it. It's there. You've got 25 publications. Nobody has quoted them. And people say, no, but they hate us. They're racist. That's why they don't cite our work. No. Citing your work doesn't mean people have to agree with you. So in academia, we show that we take you seriously and we value your work, that it's got impact on us, that you publish it, whether we agree or disagree with it or not. We quote it, we cite it. Even if the citation is to say, I don't agree with LenkaBula 2012, because it means I'm taking LenkaBula's 2012 seriously. If we just ignore you, we don't say anything, it means you are so irrelevant that we don't even engage. And that's something that young people don't. They say, but people are writing, they're dissing my work. I say to them, the fact that they're dissing it, it means it's relevant. Otherwise, they'll just ignore you. You must cry that they're ignoring you, not that they're disagreeing with you. All right, Puleng?
I definitely concur with what you're saying. It is very important that knowledge that is produced is engaged. And sometimes it may not be engaged at the particular point when you are eager for it to be cited. So for instance, you may find that if I were to give an example in nanotechnology, you may find that the discipline of nanotechnology, even though I'm not a natural scientist, has grown, but its applications on paint techniques, for instance, or on other aspects that, or maybe on construction for weather patterns such as those of Africa, has not been developed. So nanotechnology would have been a technological field or a field that has developed when biotechnologies and others developed. However, the application may be to something so different that even this old theoretical framework or idea has found a new expression. And that's what may be an important opportunity for ensuring that your work is cited. So I think it's very important that you ensure that your work is accessible that you also translate it into the public, that idea of engaged scholarship or community engagement. Because when that happens, then people are aware of the generation of knowledge that you're developing.
Yeah.
And I like the idea that you said the challenge in many instances when people are chasing number is to regurgitate ideas that are already in the public domain and not necessarily push forward the discourses that they're working on. And this is something that challenges the quality of professors, and it also challenges the knowledge systems that develops within a particular geospatial context, such that you may find that we just now become basic researchers and not necessarily complex systems and global impact. And those are quite important to consider if people want to be professors that are not scared to share their voices, their insights anywhere in the world with their contemporaries.
Yeah, and I see someone saying, what if my work is not cited in academia, but it's cited outside academia? It actually doesn't matter, because these days, when we actually check citations, we can check your citations everywhere. I mean, the technology allows us, it's not whether it's in academia or not, it just checks wherever your work is cited. So don't fool yourself or others and say, my work is powerful, but it's just that it's outside academia. No. When we check your citation index, it picks up everywhere where your work is cited. So don't worry whether it's cited by practitioners, by policymakers, or whatever, as long as it is cited, that's what's important. The other thing I want you to talk to us about, I mean, one of the things that people should do if they want to earn a professorship is collaborations. There's this idea, some people think you just work alone, you write alone, you sit here in South Africa, you go to Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, Cape Town, you think you're fine. But actually, one way of growing your work and your stature is collaborations with others outside the country. Can you talk to us a little bit about that? Because I think some people don't pay attention. And I'm not talking going to conferences. People think the academic tourism is what's going to make them professors. No. We're talking about collaborations. Puleng?
Definitely. I concur with you that this notion of academic safaris and predatory journals that you spoke about are quite important aspects for us to demythologize. By this I mean we should encourage academics to ensure that they initiate discourses, analysis, collaborative opportunities with different universities within South African context, in the continent, and globally. But this is particularly important, Khethi, to ensure that one scholarship is not just provincial, and by provincial I mean just local.
Yes.
If you are, for instance, a professor of public affairs or public administration, you should not just be conversant with the public administrative systems of South Africa. You must understand the comparative lessons from the SADC region, from the continent, but also from the EU, American, Asian, and other developments.
Yes.
This is particularly important because the impact that we have in the production of knowledge is really to steer knowledge forward.
Yes.
And knowledge intersects. So if we think about your own discipline, Khethi, mathematics, or the teaching of mathematics, if you don't understand the evolution of some theorems or theory, and you just think they are bequeathed to us, and therefore decolonization means you just remove them, you might realize that you've lost the idea that Pythagoras' rule or the development therein of measurements elsewhere was the ideas that were proffered by the African context. So you actually derail the knowledge that has been produced. Or if you're in philosophy or theology, you might cite Augustine, who's one of the great philosophers who analyzed the meaning-making or ideas and apportion this person to context or geographic context that they do not belong, and therefore undermine the very contribution that your own geographic location or discipline has contributed to. In the social sciences, a lot of people think around post-colonial theory or Michel Foucault as a French scholar, and they forget that Michel Foucault is a North African who wove the experiences of North Africa, French-speaking North Africa, with Arabic cultural systems and the interfaces with the Southern African context, the European context, and the developments in the colonial systems, and was weaving these knowledge systems in order to create discourses and theories that are helpful. And without digging deeper, and also without ensuring that the flowering of your knowledge intersects with Asia, Europe, the Caribbean, you may find that you're regurgitating what has been produced elsewhere, or you may find that you're apportioning knowledge that has developed in Africa to people elsewhere, or even knowledge that has developed elsewhere to people who do not have anything to do with it. So it is very important for us, especially us as African intellectuals or African women, professors, academics, aspirant academics, never to narrow our knowledge base, because professors who are narrow do not do anything to push knowledge as a transformative agenda, as something that changes the trajectory of the economic development systems of Africa and also of the world. And I think this is quite important, Hetty, because even sometimes the statistics that are given around knowledge produced by Africa, we're told that Africa contributes 2% of the global knowledge. But if you were to dig deeper and to really ensure that we evaluate ourselves, what types of knowledge we produce, how it translates into our societies, how do the 26 universities and their professors contribute and are globally impactful. We really need to ensure that those who are aspiring to take this pathway of the academy are not shy. They go deeper and deeper, but they also flower in order to ensure that our knowledge is also not buried in the context where we are operating.
So very helpful, and people are appreciating your explanations, Puleng. Thank you so much. Here's the thing, I mean, some people are asking, so who do you collaborate with? Can I collaborate with people in other disciplines, whatever? And my point is that you first have to think about why collaborating. You don't just collaborate just for the sake of collaboration, right? So oftentimes, I mean, my collaborators are carefully selected. Sometimes they select me and sometimes I select them. But even if someone say they want to work with me, I want to make sure that I can contribute to what they are saying. So you always have to ask, what am I working on? So what's my project? What's the problem that I'm working on now? And what kinds of voices or perspectives would I like in this problem? And you might say, well, like I do work on mathematics in multilingual classrooms. And when I look for collaborators, I look around the world and I say there are multilingual classrooms all over the world, but they're different, right? So it would be great to have a collaborator who works in a multilingual classroom, and its multilinguality is because of immigrant communities. I want one in an area where it is from indigenous people, perhaps who are now a minority because they've been like a place like Canada, Australia, a place where the US, the immigrant community in the US is different, you know, like the Spanish people have been there for a while. I might choose also in terms of how long it's been like that. I might choose someone in Francophone Africa, for example, because of how French came in through coloniality. It's different from how French functions in mathematics classrooms in Canada. It's very different from how it will function in other countries where it came through in another way. So you choose what you want to, you choose the kind of collaborators, but think about it. Sometimes the collaborators you choose are because of the theoretical perspectives that they bring. It might not be because of the context. It might be that, I want someone who uses Bourdieu's frameworks because they work differently, I want a Bernsteinian in my group because I want this kind of other thinking, a sociological perspective or whatever. So think about why you need collaborators, because when you think about why you need collaborators, then you can say which collaborators. Then you can write, you can look at them, and then you can look at their profile. What are they writing about? Sometimes collaborators you meet at conferences, you engage with them, and you realize that's the person I want on my research team. Or they say, I want Puleng on my team because I love the way they think. Puleng, your closing remarks. I want to get to Collet just now.
Yeah, thank you very much, Kheti. I think you have already made the idea that you have to really take initiative, check the ethical issues that are entailed, look at the theoretical foundations or basis for the collaboration, but also think around what it is in the discipline or in the theory that you are going to be contributing to what. Yeah. And I think this is quite an excellent criteria that you have actually created as some of the criteria that people should think about when they initiate collaborations. Some of the contexts of collaborations must be attentive to the geospatial contestations, economic contestations, the ethics of political, global wars, and so on. And therefore, I think those are important aspects that people must also negotiate with. Finally, I'm saying it is not constructive to collaborate with people whose voices cohere with ours. Sometimes it is important to work with people whose views, worldviews are different from ours, because it enables us to substantiate why we hold particular positions in the theories that we're developing or in the praxis of those theories. And your point is quite important. So for me, when I initiate collaborative efforts, some of the key criteria is that I must ensure that there are women. I must ensure that there are people who live with disabilities, because these are communities in the main that the academy has tended to marginalize. I also try to ensure that I collaborate with people who understand multidisciplinary work, so that we don't dabble in the work that we're doing, but the socio-economic and ecological issues from a feminist ethical framework or social justice framework is projected. That is quite important. So it means the people who may be promoting orthodox economics that do not focus on the implications of economics in the world. I read them. I have to understand them. I have to understand the logic. And when I initiate that collaboration, it helps me to substantiate why economic ethics must be attentive to the plight of LGBTQ communities, indigenous communities that you have talked about, why they have to be anti-colonial or decolonial, and why knowledge must never be for its own sake, but must always be deployed for change, for transformation, and restoring human dignity in the global world that doesn't use knowledge for that. We use knowledge to
Puleng, I want to step. Puleng, I want to move on to talk to Collet, because I see that we are running out of time. Let me tell you something. There's more sessions that I'm going to have a session on academic freedom. I want us to have a session on transformation. And I will call you so that we when we talk about the session on transformation in particular, I would like you to come on board together with someone else. Because I think we're going to drive these things more, because people think transformation is just about employment equity, but it's also about the issues that you're talking about.
No.
Exactly. So we will advance those issues again when I have that session, so that, because we're trying to grow people in academia, and it's important that we talk about these important issues. So thank you very much, Puleng, for contributing to this session. And lastly, always a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you very much for bringing me into Instagram as a platform for educational sharing. I always thought it was a fashion platform. Thank you for transforming how knowledge is received, engaged with, and appreciated, even in spaces such as this. So thank you, Kheti.
Fantastic.
And a wonderful session.
Have a good evening.
I'll be watching. Thank you.
All right, that was fantastic, Professor LenkaBula. So now I'm going to call Professor Collet Dandara, and we're going to be talking. Professor Collet Dandara is a scientist. He's a brother right here at UCT, and I want him to talk to us about his journey, what enabled him to be a professor at UCT. Professor Collet, how are you?
I'm good. I must start by what my colleague ended with. You forced me to open an Instagram account. It's my first. So I'm not sure how I will be doing on this platform.
You are doing very well. You are doing so far so good, Collet. It's working. It's working. Collet,
thank you.
You are one of the few black professors at UCT. The truth of the matter is that we do have a big challenge of getting black people rise to the level of professorship.
Lectures all the time.
Yes.
And when now you combine your teaching and your research, you also say that you must actually generate knowledge. I teach what I generate.
Yes.
So if you look at my lectures last year and this year, they'll be different because new knowledge has come.
Yes.
So I include new knowledge in my current lectures. So it's very, very important for you to reach the professorship that you are also generating knowledge in the area that you are teaching. So the teaching and the research are actually very combined, because you teach in the area that you have got expertise in. And then when you look at the whole spectrum, some people concentrate on one area only. You must be able to see that you are satisfying your teaching, you are satisfying your research, you are satisfying your leadership in administration, and you are engaging in the community, the social responsiveness.
Yes. Yeah.
If I may just summarize on the teaching.
Yeah.
There are two aspects of teaching where you give lectures, and then the teaching where you supervise postgraduate students. One thing that you must do when you supervise postgraduate students, to understand that you don't know it all. Yeah. So what do? You find co-supervisors who fill in the gaps of knowledge you have.
Yes.
So that the student have a full sort of spectrum of knowledge, not just from you, but from the people around them.
That's
and you can do that using other colleagues.
Yes.
Or you can use doctors who have got knowledge more than yourself to help you in the teaching.
Yes.
And then, so that bring students who are well-rounded. And then when we go to research, an area that you are passionate about, and then create a niche area that, so when you are sleeping and dreaming, sometimes you must also dream about your research and say, how can I tackle it? And when you start doing that, you are in a very good area that you love.
Yeah.
However, you cannot do it alone as well. Collaborations become very important.
Yes.
But you must also see in the collaboration how you are positioned. Where are you in the collaboration? Are you just collecting and other people are like collecting samples and sending them? Or are you collecting samples, characterizing them and contributing to, to analysis of the sample? So you must fight to be in the middle of what is being done in that research.
That that's very important. So when you start collaborating with people, it's important that you are not a passenger and just thinking, because I'm in this team, everything they publish, my name will be there. You have to be in the center. But that's when you say you are joining a group that you're collaborating, but you can start a group as well.
Yes.
And then invite people to be in your group. But again, you must drive it. Don't just sit there and be a passenger. That's very important. You want to be a professor, you must show leadership, contribution, and otherwise it doesn't mean anything.
Definitely. So there are two types of collaboration where you are the initiator, you are in charge.
Yeah.
And then there are where you are invited just for your piece of skill. It's okay. You can contribute your 10% that they want.
Yeah.
They can run away with it.
Yeah.
But you also invite them, they contribute 5%, you run away with it. So, but together your portfolio builds very fast.
Yeah.
Alone, it will take you long to really build any meaningful portfolio. So there is a balance there. Then when it comes to leadership and administration, it's very tricky. That sometimes you have to be nominated to sit on particular committees or leadership.
Yes.
You have no, let's say, you have no choice. You can't push.
Yes.
But when opportunities make themselves available, grab them.
Yes.
But when you grab, always think of track. Don't grab opportunities that are only in teaching. They must be spread across your teaching, your research, your social responsiveness, so that you are becoming whole, even in the leadership, that you are leading a whole spectrum of different things.
Yeah. I mean, Collet, you remind me the first time I met you, you were on the Young Academy of Sciences. You were on the committee for the Young Academy of Sciences, and I was an advisor on there. But first of all, I mean, to be on the committee, you had to be a member of the academy. You were nominated to be a member of the academy, and then after admission, you became in the committee. And I remember how robust the session was.
Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
And it's those kinds of opportunities.
Yes, so you grab the opportunity and run away with it. And now, one of the issues that people also should know, I spoke earlier about diversity in terms of people, cultures, and all that. Yeah. You get in an organization, not everybody will like you. Also, the opposite, not everyone, you will not also like everybody. Yes. It doesn't matter. What will carry the day is your integrity and honesty. Yes. When you are given a duty, you must deliver.
Absolutely.
Because when it matters most, organizations will lean on people who deliver. They will not care about whether that person is liked by people. That they say, no, if you want this job to be done, you must call on this person. Yes. So you must, with honesty and integrity and delivering on time. That's very, very, very important as well.
Yeah, and that what you're talking about, it's also when your documents come to the ad hominem promotions committee. They know that this guy delivers. Like you have more advocates who might not have worked with you, but they know your honesty, integrity, and you deliver. And that will count in your favor.
Yes, and then one of the most crucial things, especially for us Black professors, is once we get this PhD or we are now a senior lecturer on that, we tend to move away from our communities completely, not just physically. Yes. We no longer even want to go to their Chisanyama and all that. Yes. What it does, it kills our ideas. Yes. What you should do is occasionally ride in the taxi, ride in the train, ride in the bus, and be grounded in the people in the city. Because your ideas, when you're now thinking about your grants and all that, they are firmly actually based on reality. Yes. They are no longer, it's not like fantasy that now we are just, let's say, now we are just staying in consensus where you are not surrounded by the reality of what you grew up. Yes. You have to come up with new ideas. Yes. That's one thing
that's good advice. That's good advice. You know, that's very good advice. Otherwise, you forget where you come from.
Exactly, and then the other issue also is that everyone makes mistakes. Yeah. When you are teaching, when you are doing research and that, you will make mistakes. So don't be afraid. But what you must do when you make those mistakes and when you realize you've made the mistakes, have the integrity to come up and own up and say, look, when I look back, this I think I did it wrong. But when you are doing it at that time, you must use all the available evidence and do your best to do your best. Yes. Don't be afraid that let's say a month later this might be found to be wrong. Yes. But the evidence I have today, this is the best decision I can make. Yes. I'll make an example of what our president has done, Ramaphosa.
Yeah.
During the start of lockdown, nobody knew about the effects of lockdown.
Yes.
But now people are telling you that this lockdown was so wrong, he could have done that. I always say hindsight is a very good thing for most people.
Yeah.
But nobody knew what was going to happen.
Actually, people were congratulating him for instituting the lockdown when he started.
Exactly. And he had to use what was available at the time. Yes. And where mistakes were made, he's agreeing. So I think it's similar in academia. Use the best evidence at that time and agree to be wrong when you're wrong. And come up and say, I think I was wrong. But I used everything that I could at that time.
Yeah.
And I think you need a lot of respect among colleagues. Because remember, there will always be people who are waiting for you to be wrong.
Yes. And
show you that you are. So if you are trying to hide it, then it becomes a huge issue.
Okay, that's really good for advice for people who are starting. Is there anything that you'd say they shouldn't do when they're still growing? Like, because there's so many, especially when you're a black academic, Collet, you get invited, you get pulled into so many things. And I have found out as a young academic, I had to make tough decisions to say, I don't do that. It's not that I don't value it, but that's not what I want to do right now. I want to do that. I want to do that. And I sometimes I look at young academics who are not making good choices. Everything they get asked to do, they just go and do it. And then they end up with so many things, on so many committees and so many task teams. And then they can't do their own research. Someone who's white, their age, once they're busy with committees, the white person is busy with research and teaching, growing their career. The one day this one gets promoted, you don't, you start complaining because you've been busy with committees and a lot of task teams and lots of things.
So one of the things that when you're coming up the ladder is to know what to emphasize. The first thing to emphasize when you're a junior lecturer up to senior lecturer is teaching and research. Why I say so is that, especially for research, certain grants are age limited. So you have to get those grants when you're a particular age. After that, you won't get them. Gone. So concentrate on your teaching and your research when you're a junior. Of course, touch on a little bit of leadership. Once your portfolio of research is strong and has gone up, and now we are going into the associate professor, start now to pick on leadership. You can always lead until in the 80s. But the research funders, most of them will give a cap on funding. No, you're over 40, we no longer consider you. You're over 45, we no longer consider you. So move with time. So less the burden on leadership and administration at the early ages, and then you flip. When you are now a full professor, you've got all the time in the world, because now you have got postdocs who can assist you in doing the research, while you can contribute to the administration. So
young academics should learn to say no, thank you. I know you want me to be head of department. I'm not ready. Even if they pay you more, even if they're gonna pay you more, say no, because what you want is not just the money. You want to get to the level of professorship.
I think also the discussion that you must have is look at the documents for progression in your organization and say, what does it take for me to get to the next level? Read them. And when you read them, build a track record for track. So that you have got a track record. You cannot just do these things in 1 year and say, I want to be promoted. They want to see consistent performance in those levels. So a track record is very important. But one aspect is you develop. An important aspect are postgraduate students. They are very, very important. Why they are important is that you must be able to take a novice when they join you, when they don't know anything, guide them. Let's say a new PhD. 4 years down the line, they are an expert. But the challenge of most of our is that once they reach to the expert stages with one PhD student, they don't come back to pick a novice. They now expect a new student to already just meet them at the expert stage. So they have to come back and meeting another new student who also needs my guidance, and we walk again the same path until they also become skilled. And then benefiting them with the let's say publications and also conferences. You were talking about academic tourism. I've got a rule in my group that your work cannot be presented at more than 2 conferences. The 2 conferences we allow is a local one and an international one, your work is done.
Yes.
Create more new work, and I will look for money for you to travel.
Yeah.
You build them, and we compete at the very, very, very international level. Not myself going only. I also send my students to represent with all the evidence that we are competing globally.
Yes. That's excellent advice. Excellent advice, particularly of getting students. And Collet, some young academics think that you sit and wait. So I hear young academics saying, I have a PhD, but my university is not giving me students to supervise, whatever. And I say to them, you get them. You don't.
Yes.
You get them. Don't sit there and wait and say they should give you. I mean, if they give you, that's great. But make sure that the students who are doing honors or who are doing undergrad already are saying, I want to work with Prof. Dandara. Or you approach them once they're doing their final year. You say, I'd really like to have you for my postgraduate student, so that they know you want them. So don't be shy. Approach them. You say, you're doing great, and I'd love to work with you when you do your postgrad. Yeah.
No, so I think when you work on your portfolio with clear targets of where you want to get to, and collaborating and supervising students with structures that students themselves support each other.
Yes.
You students who, once they finish, they already have publications. That benefits the students, also adds to your portfolio. So it's a win-win situation. You are creating capacity at the same time.
Yeah, absolutely. Collet, thank you so much for joining me today. I see appreciation from students in their comments. They love your passion, your scholarship. And I can see some of the students that you're supervising have been commenting here. And the feedback is very positive. They are appreciating your support, the great advice, the passion. So thank you very much, Collet, for joining me today. Really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. I would like to just thank my daughter, the engineer, for being on the
Give our thanks to your engineer, your IT specialist at home, who made sure that you get on Instagram and get connected today.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Collet. Thank you.
Okay, bye.
Bye. So that's it for today. I hope you took notes. I hope you noted the advice. You've got to, all the time in your career, make sure that you doing something with teaching, your community engagement, your research. Don't take leadership positions too quickly. Don't put yourself in too many committees to an extent that you don't have time to focus on things that you should focus on. We know that Black Africans are sought after in all committees for transformation purposes. But my advice to you is be wise. Have a load that you can carry. And if you are offered to be head of department too soon, when you look at your CV, always look at your CV, because one day it's going to come back to bite you. Look at your CV and ask yourself, will I be able to grow this? Will I be able to what? If you can't, nicely decline and say, please give me another 2 years or 3 years. I will then be head of department then. Don't just be happy that you get called into all these task teams by the minister there, by the VC, by the head of department, by the dean. You are everywhere and you're not focusing on the things that are going to get you a promotion. You've got to make decisions. And then finally, if you are in a project, you're a collaborator, make sure that you contribute. Don't just be there, be a freeloader. Contribute when there's a paper to be written, volunteer, lead things, be involved, and let everyone in the team know the value that you are adding. Thank you so much for joining us. I know we haven't talked much about emeritus professor. I will cover that, or maybe we can do it. Emeritus professor is when someone has been an outstanding professor in the university. At the end, when they retire, the university might give them an emeritus professorship. They keep that emeritus professorship for the rest of their lives until they leave this world, right? Different universities do this differently. Some universities give it to everyone who's a full professor. They will get an emeritus professor. Some universities It's a process. There has to be applications, and there's a committee, a senate in particular will look at that, and they will say, yes, this person deserves an emeritus professor. So that's why you see in many places we've got people that we call emeritus professors, and they are retired. The emeritus professors are not paid unless they do work. Some of them would supervise students, some of them publish in the name of the university, and then they get supported in that way. So that's it.